Good evening. We would like to call Property Management Committee to order. First order of business is approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the minutes as they were sent out by email, and I find no problem with them. Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Great. Next order of business, Goldstein Building. Yeah. Our advisor.
I don't know. I just need to lean into it then. All right. Thank you, Phil. Let's see, I think it was July 16th, 17th, something like that. I issued a preliminary report. So I'm going to save all of you some misery best I can and tell you that this long technical report doesn't change anything that I'd said back on the 17th. Don't find any structural defects, a structural defect being a condition that presents, of a structural nature that presents a life safety issue. So this, in some sense, I guess, is a performance report talking about how the building is holding up. In your hands, you've got the first 6 pages, which is a narrative explaining a little bit about what we've looked at and more about what the conclusions are and how we arrived at those conclusions. I hope that the most efficient way to get through this and to leave you better informed than you are right now would be to turn to looking at the photographs. That's what we've got loaded up here. I think there's 28 pages of them. We won't need to dwell on every single one of those, but if you have questions, please speak up and chime in. Ben, who is driving the... Okay. Well, this is the cover sheet, and if our driver is in the seat... Okay, well, I guess I'm in charge. Might as well be driving a bulldozer. What do I point it at?
Come up in the system.
Give Mr. Sandlin the keys. Okay, here we go. So what button did you?
Outer circle.
The outer circle. And how did you get the laser to come on? Because that'd be handy. The middle one, okay. Sorry for the delay, y'all. Okay, good. So the first 2 pages just give us some exterior elevation views, which makes it a little bit easier when we get into the closer shots, a little bit easier to find your way around and figure out what I was trying to capture with the photos. Let's see. I've already wrecked it. Okay. You have the photos in front of you. So look at photo sheet 3. The first 2 sheets are just the outside of the building, and we've all walked around it and looked at it. So what we're going to be looking at first, and let me preface this a little bit. thing I think we need to pay some attention to, it's not urgent, but it is emerging, and it has to do with moisture and how moisture is affecting the way the building is performing now and how it's going to perform in the future. Photo sheet 3 and 4 just illustrates water damage to the window casings. That's viewed from the outside of the building. By the way, I didn't take a picture, or I haven't included a picture of every instance of peeling paint or spalling brick. These are representative examples. And all of these 2 pages show is that it's time to paint the wood, what little bit of wood there is. And then we're moving on page 5 through 5 through 15, I think. 5 through 14. And these photos illustrate examples of spalling brick and peeling paint. Now, what does that tell us? Well, you might say it's time to paint the brick again. But the news is, if you wade through the written part and the exhibits at the end, is that the paint's part of the problem. This is a this is a brick building. It's not a brick veneer. The walls on the outside are load-bearing, and they're brick through and through. The floor joists and the rafters are supported by those walls. And so the peeling paint and the spalling brick, let's make sure everyone understands what spalling is. This picture on the bottom that's up there right now is photo sheet 13, is an example of a couple of spalling brick. I wouldn't describe the condition right now as being pervasive, but it is in continuous deterioration. It's going to continue to get worse. And the reason that's a concern, and by the way, I didn't approach this as a maintenance type report. It's a structural report. But because the load-bearing walls are brick and they're deteriorating, it becomes a structural issue. Because if we don't identify what's causing these things to deteriorate and address it, it's going to continue to deteriorate, and then we truly do have a structural problem. So where's the moisture coming from? And why is it causing this? The best I can tell, the building was there in 1888, probably older than that. We're estimating the age of the building to be about 140 years. The brick at that time was fired by either wood fires or by coal, and that doesn't heat the brick up as hot as the brick that we use today. By being able to heat the brick to higher temperatures causes a physical change and a chemical change in the clay that the brick are made of. And so today's brick don't perform like the brick do that were used to build this building. They're much more porous, and the mortar is too. Portland cement wasn't available around here. Portland cement is an important part of the mortar that we use to lay brick today. It's also much harder. So what the brick were laid with back in the 1880s was lime and sand. And it performs like mortar. It is mortar, but it isn't the same mortar we use today. Both of those materials, the mortar and the brick, as I said, absorb moisture. This isn't just an issue that relates to being exposed to the rain. There's something that's gone on since 1980 to where we are today, and one of the things that I wanted to point out is air conditioning. It's not too hot today, but a couple of weeks ago it was pretty warm. And what air conditioning does for us during those hot days, every day in Tennessee is humid, every single day. And humidity is uncomfortable. You've heard it's not the heat, it's the humidity, but it's also the heat. Air conditioning will cause the relative humidity inside of a building to go up in the summer. And so the vapor pressure inside the building, the humidity inside the building is higher than outside. And nature being what nature is and doing what nature does, tries to equalize things on both sides, and so moisture will penetrate and pass through the walls, or at least it'll try to. And painting brick inhibits that, and eventually the vapor pressure will push the paint off of the brick and will also cause some damage to the mortar. Now I'm back to talking about mortar. Notice that the mortar on the brick, at least what you see on the outside, is actually a more recent, a newer version of the mortar. It's not the sand and lime mortar. It's a Portland cement-based mortar that's on there now. And it was applied in a process that some of you may have heard of called tuck pointing. They clean out some of the mortar and take a mortar board and a point of a trowel and use the point to tuck the mortar into that joint they cleaned out, and then they slick it off, and unfortunately that seals the mortar joint. Now if you're sealing it against the water, rain, that's a good thing. If you're sealing it so that you inhibit the passage of moisture from the inside to the outside, it's a bad thing. So the peeling paint's attributable to all of that. Well, what happens if we don't attend to that? Well, it's going to continue to cause the spalling, more brick to lose the face. I didn't really completely explain what spalling is. Just like pushing the paint off and causing it to peel, moisture inside the brick, when it's trapped like that, will force the face off of the brick. Part of that is due to it being moist enough that when we do get freezing weather, it'll freeze and bust off the face of the brick. And naturally, the thing that comes behind that statement is, well, what do we do about it? It's a little bit of a process, but I believe that it would be a cost-effective process. It involves stripping the paint off. It involves tuck pointing the brick again, but instead of using a strong, hard mortar like that, we would use a lower grade of mortar, which seems counterintuitive, but what we're trying to do is match the compressive strength of the mortar up with the compressive strength of the brick. And there's a little bit of that, I think, on page 2 or 3 of the report, where we talk about the different grades of mortar. Page 8 illustrates a couple of things. On the bottom of that page, you'll see a photograph, and I've got some arrows pointing out a vertical line. And I've concluded that those are control joints that were saw cut into the brick in the not so distant past. I don't know when. It may have been when the county bought the building and started converting it into the use that it's in right now. But a control joint, everybody in here has seen a control joint. You just might not have known what to call it. Control joints are these grooves that you'll find in every sidewalk. They're put in there intentionally. And those grooves are intentionally created weaknesses, so that when the inevitable movement occurs, when the inevitable cracking occurs, we hope it occurs in those grooves so that they're nice and straight and not so ugly. They really don't, those nice straight cracks don't do anything that the crooked cracks do. But when they occur in those grooves we've made, we call them controlled cracks, because the cracks occurred in our control joint. And when they occur in places where we haven't created a joint, they're called uncontrolled cracks. But they're still cracks, and they're evidence of what we know, and that is that as concrete cures, it shrinks, but concrete continues to cycle through dimensional changes with every single day. It gets hot in the sun, gets cold in the winter, and that also causes cracks. And that effect of getting hot in the summer and cold in the winter affects brick also. Now, I think those intentionally created cuts there were used because there are places, and if you look on the page right after that, page 9, you'll see an example of some little stair-step cracks that occur above that vent. And those are uncontrolled cracks, which tells us that it needed control joints and didn't have them early on. They've got them now, but we've also got these uncontrolled cracks. Structurally, they're not really much of a problem. There are some things we can do to improve performance. There is a brick repair procedure called crack stitching. It involves using a piece of stainless steel that is machined, a little flat bar, and it's put in another machine that twists it so it looks a little bit like Twizzle sticks or some of those candies that kids eat, but they're stiff, and you clean out a joint so that you go across the crack. You clean out a horizontal bed joint, lay a bead of epoxy in there, lay the helical tie. That's what this little twisted piece of metal is called, a helical tie. Lay it in the epoxy, another bead of epoxy, and then you finish the joint with the softer mortar, and that bridges across there. And we count then on those vertical saw cut joints to accommodate the movement that's occurring because of the weather. So if you choose to go forward with a plan of repair, which is part of the future phases that I've proposed, that is, in a nutshell, the type of repair procedure that I would be recommending that we would use for that. That is something that's recommended because I find the building to be very sound and very serviceable. I don't see any structural reason to go in and tear it down. You may have something else you want to do with the property, but the building can hold its own doing what it's doing right now and is adaptable to some other uses. I have included some pictures following those that illustrate the brick. The next part of the report addresses the roof. The roof, as I believe it, is at least 20 years old. Mr. Mankin, do you think that's about it? Yeah. I was involved a little bit in the installation of that, but I just can't remember how long ago it was. Right now what we're seeing is just some instances where maintenance is warranted. The joints are pulling apart. That happens with age. This is a TPO, a terpolymer overlay single membrane roof, but you have to put it down in sheets, and then you've got flashing metal, cap metal, and everything, everywhere that these things come together in a joint needs to be sealed off. I can't tell you today that any of the spots that I've indicated in this report are leaking today. And I told you at the beginning, this is the roof part of this, I'm just pointing out maintenance issues. But because water, if it starts entering at the top of the wall and working its way down, it's going to accelerate some conditions that could get out of hand a little bit too quickly. So if we decide to go forward with a plan of repair, it will be including to go back and do some maintenance on all of these joints. There are two, looking now at photo sheet 19 and 20, no, I thought it was 19 and 20. Well, let's look at photo sheet, oh, it's 19 and 22. There are two, I've called them aerials. I don't know if it's like an antenna. There's some sort of equipment up there that appears to be microwave or something. I don't know what they are. Okay, so there are cameras. There are two. One is on the northeast corner of the building, and the other one is more toward the west. Page 19 shows that this was originally, at least partially, relies on sandbags to stabilize it. And the sandbags have gone by the wayside. They didn't hold up too well to the infrared light and the sun, so they've just deteriorated. Now we've got a pile of wet sand on the base. And in a storm, if I'm right about this, if that is just a plate of some sort with sand piled up on it, it could get blown over and could damage the roof. So a little bit of maintenance looking ahead there to bring some new sandbags in, I think, might avoid that issue. Photo sheet 22, this is a different type of base, and it doesn't look all that great. It's basically weathering away, and so I would recommend giving it some attention as well. Now, as we went through the interior of the building, I was expecting to find, and I found a few cracks in the drywall. Nothing of any structural significance. It's important to understand that these walls are framed out of wood. And wood, sort of like brick and concrete, will shrink and swell, but the thing that changes the dimensions in wood are mostly going to be moisture. As I said, moisture is kind of the big deal here. So the wood will shrink and swell, and if you build a house big enough, it's going to shrink and swell enough to cause a crack. And we've got a few cracks in there. But one of the surprising things that I found, and photo sheet 27 is an example of this. If you look at the top photo on sheet 27, you may have a hard time seeing it. It didn't print as well as I thought, but the bottom photo is a detail. You'll notice that there's a triangular shaped gap underneath that door. By studying this closely, I can tell you that the floor didn't settle away from the door. The floor was sloped when the wall was built, the wall that the door sits in. So the day they hung the door, that triangular gap was there. And I chose this because it illustrates a point that I really couldn't find a photograph that helped me much. If you've been upstairs in the planning and engineering department, and if you look around much, you'll notice that things are kind of wonky. You look at the cabinets, and they're sitting on the floor over here and sitting on a 2x4 over here. The floor is not level. And I was expecting, absolutely expecting, to find these floor joists sagging, and I was expecting that I'd probably be coming back when I got here to talk to you about how badly the floor system is performing. Now, the way I went about this part of the job, I have an instrument that y'all may be familiar with, may not be, but it's called a zip level. And it's like an old water level, if you've ever seen one of those, a clear tube with water in it. And no matter what you drag that tube over, the water in each end of that tube would be at the same level. So then you could measure down from the water line to the floor, and you could judge the relative elevations. Fortunately, engineers smarter than me devised this thing. And so I can take the box, set it in the floor, unwind a tube, like pulling line off of a fishing reel, and at the end of that, other end of that line, it's a little device, not much bigger than this box. And I can lay it on the floor and push a button, and it'll tell me how much higher or lower this point is than the first box I set down. So I went through the building, setting this thing down, and going and checking different parts about it. And so even though the east side of the planning department room, now I'm talking about the middle part, the farthest east side of the thing is pretty level, but the middle part, on the east side, it was higher than on the west side. But when I start checking in the middle, it was checking out flat, but not level. Now, I have to be completely forthcoming here. There's a little bit of deflection, but there always is. The point is that the amount of difference, which if I recall correctly is a little over 3 inches across that big room, was only a fraction of an inch out in the middle, which leads to the conclusion, which I'll only take a minute to talk about this, but the 3 sections of what we call the old Goldstein's building apparently were built at the same time, but were built to be both structurally and functionally independent of each other. And at some point in time, I've got pictures of when Goldstein's entrance appeared to be only the far east building. Then later they took over the middle one. The one to the far west, old pictures indicate that was a furniture store. I don't know if Goldstein's was ever in it. The first floors are pretty much close to each other, but the middle building was lower than the east building. So when they knocked the big hole through the wall so that you could flow in between, they were confronted with an issue where the middle building's floor was lower, and apparently they resolved it by adding onto those floor joists and sloping it up to where it met the floor on the east side. So there's 3 buildings that are now one, and then actually while Goldstein's owned it and operated the 2 toward the east, the little flat roof section on the southeast corner used to be where the fire department in Murfreesboro was. And that building was torn down, and Goldstein's extended their building all the way out to Vine Street. So that's much newer construction. My guess is that may have been 40s or 50s based on the construction. And all of it is doing a jam-up job. Any questions?
Questions?
I have a question. You were talking about stripping the paint off of the brick. Will that mess with the integrity of the brick if it's already got issues going on with it, with that paint
No,
stripping?
that's just the first step of a process of restoring that wall and then protecting it going forward.
Okay.
It's the first step. But the point is that it will change the look. Some people may think it's better and others might not think so, but functionally, in order to preserve its integrity, that needs to happen. Now, I should say, I guess, that I don't see this being highly urgent. I don't think it's prudent to defer it for very long, but Part of this report is to inform y'all so that you can be making decisions about how to use this building going forward. You know, if you took 3 to 5 years to sort that out, and at the end of that you decide you were wanting to continue to use this building rather than replacing it with something else, it'll still be there for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Got a question. Commissioner Gooch, got a question?
I guess in conclusion, from what I understand, I haven't read this report yet, that it is a structurally sound building.
Yes, sir.
And you talked about the floor, the way they did it was I guess the appropriate way to do it, and it's not causing any floor damage.
Don't have any reason to suspect there's been any damage to it.
Thanks, Chairman. So my only question or avenue of questions is, remind me of your 3-part contract and to give us some clarity on what choices we might have to make next. Rather than ask you about cost, I think we need to engage you to create a next step. So tell me about the 3 parts of the proposal.
Okay, phase 1, which this report satisfies everything we committed to do in phase 1, that phase 1 is listed right here, so I'm not going to read that back to you. I've got the contract here. Phase 2 is brief. It's 1 paragraph. General recommendations for a proper method of repair to correct and or stabilize the deficient conditions and or damaged structural elements. Really didn't find any structural defects that warranted repair right now. So in a sense, we've completed that sentence that's part of phase 2. And so the remainder of that paragraph says that we would be preparing a conceptual plan from which construction costs can be estimated and may be developed for the client's consideration with regard to the feasibility of repair, remodeling, repurposing, or other use of the building. So I'm anticipating that there will be some conversations between myself, maybe you pick 1 or 2, or we do it as a whole, on what the concept should be. Is it to be repurposing it? Is it to be addressing some perceived deficiencies? For instance, where I've been told, at least, that there was interest in completely overhauling or replacing the heat and air conditioning system, or the HVAC, and that the price that was submitted was higher than anticipated. I have not tried to survey everyone there, but I did talk to several of the people there, and my general impressions, this isn't a survey, so there's nothing scientific about it, but the impressions were that the people that worked there liked working there. They liked the building, and if you happen to be in a corner office or toward the north-facing windows, it might get a little chilly in the winter. I don't think Mike Hughes would be offended if I tried to quote him, but I think he said something like, "But that's not a real big deal because a sweater solves that." So I haven't studied the proposal that wound up with a quote of, I think, about $900,000 to redo the whole building. So I don't know what their goal was, but it sounds like that would be appropriate for a complete and state-of-the-art system. Now, I'm kind of taking my engineer's hat off a little bit, and I'm going to preach a little bit as a citizen of Rutherford County. I live out in Las Casas, if y'all want to know. But I got my doubts that we need to spend $900,000 on a heat and air conditioning system based on what I see, what I felt, the people I've talked to. Now back on script. If we can decide kind of what direction we want to go to, or go in, or do we want to try to propose or put together a conceptual plan for 2 or 3 different concepts, we can do all that. But right now, I don't think you're asking me to, or I've been contracted to do a proposal, a conceptual plan recommending what direction the whole thing needs to go in. I've already stated that as a consultant, I think the building is usable, but I also think there's things that could be done to make it more usable. Having done this study, I understand more completely now how we wound up with that mezzanine back there. The mezzanine that has always aggravated me. So I would be tempted to look at ways of recapturing some of that space for better use if we needed more space, which is a question I haven't asked and have no idea what the answer would be.
Was there a cost associated with the second part of your proposal that was in the contract?
Yes, and the reason I did not give you a price on that yet is because I didn't know what it would be looking like until I got through with this part.
If I may jump to a conclusion, I would like to make a motion that Warren Engineering present to us a proposal to complete phase 2 of the original contract. And that's my motion. And
Motion.
I second.
And my anticipation is that we, at the very least, get together some pricing on stripping and tuck pointing and resurfacing. We get a price, that you put together some specs to get us a price estimate, not a proposal, on the roof, whether it's repair and or replacement. Things like that would be part of this second phase. And then that gives us, then we might choose to put together a group or have you come back and talk about reusing the building. But at the very least, we need to get it, I think, maintenance, a sound maintenance plan, so that we know what to protect it as an asset, then decide if we're going to sell it or keep it and remodel it.
Mayor, you got
I was just going to ask, Commissioner, are you looking for just everything on the exterior? Or are you looking for anything on the interior in this next phase?
My motion is specifically to the defects that you referenced in your report, and that is water damage on windows, roof potential leaks, and the exterior brick spalling. So those elements you pointed out that were not structural defects, but maintenance defects, if those could be analyzed and an estimate given to us, and then we'll choose if we're going to go to a request for proposals.
If I may ask you a question, are you asking me to provide you with what we call an engineer's estimate of cost, which is a different animal than getting 3 contractors to give us
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's my suggestion, is we use you as a guide before we, just to decide what's the range of cost to do the minimal necessary. So an OPC, an opinion of probable cost, would be my expectation.
I can put that together, and that work product is a function of the quote we would prepare you for what we're now calling phase 2, right? So the first thing you want from me is a quote to put that together for you.
Yes, so
Okay.
that this body can choose, do we want to spend that consultation money? I want to take some baby steps, because we could spend a whole lot of money on this building. I want to know exactly what we're getting into before we plan that programming of.
I would like to add something else. While we're doing the study of this Goldstein building, why don't we go ahead and maybe have Public Building Authority look at a new building, the cost of a new building, square footage for what we have over there in our locations that we talked about. So we have some idea to compare it to. For an example, if you bring me back a cost that's gonna cost 1.5 million to repair this building, how much is it gonna cost me to build a new steel and concrete building across the street? While we're doing this, I would like maybe, together with the mayor, PVA or somebody, to come back with that figure also. So we have something to look at, a whole package to look at. Instead of us dragging this out, looking at it piecemeal, what we're gonna cost to do this, what it's gonna cost to do that, and then have no idea of what it costs to build a new building. That's just my thinking. I think the mayor would have the capability to do that in his office. Everyone understand? I don't know if it needs to be part of this motion, but I would like that brought back to us. First statement I made is that not only do we look at repairing this building, but we look at building a new building on the properties that we have across the street. Steel and concrete. Compare that cost with the repairing of this building.
I support that process. I'd like to keep this motion independent and just have just an opportunity to give this building some analysis, and then perhaps we could have a greater conversation on programming, planning and engineering, or what to do with the building. But I'd like to see a consultation price first, and then let's attack that, either a next motion here in a moment or next month, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I think that sounds good, but I don't want us to get it hung up on the Goldstein building, that when this price come back, that we need to go ahead and make a decision to repair this building without looking at the concept of building a new building.
If that's your request, Mr. Chairman, I think to handle this motion tonight that Commissioner Dodds made, just to go ahead and do that and give that direction to Mr. Warren. And then in the meantime, while he's doing that, I can start talking to some folks about.
Yeah, I thought perhaps Bart Klein could give you some square foot, just some.
Yes, sir.
So I think we can handle that.
That's what my intent was to do.
Independent.
While Mr. Warren's doing this, I'll talk to Bart Klein or someone else, Johnson Bailey, whoever, about going in on the support piers that are where the fountain is, right in front of the fountain where the gazebo is, that belongs to the county. And then I'll share with you, after you resolve this motion, conversations I've had with the city and I've had with Mr. Bart Klein over the last 30 days.
Commissioner
Thank you, Chair. So just to be clear, there's no interior defects that we would need, because this motion takes care of the exterior defects, am I correct? And so, but other than ideas for the mezzanine room for added space, but there's no defects that we would need to look at any cost of the interior.
No, sir.
Okay,
There are
thank you.
none.
Okay, do everyone understand the motion, or you want to read back, or you understand the motion? Then I'm gonna call for the vote.
Commissioner Cook?
No.
David Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Chairman McAdoo?
Yes. What will be the time frame that you will bring this back to us? That wasn't in the motion. Can you give us a time frame? Will it be ready by next meeting, or
Yes, sir, I'm confident I can have it ready by next meeting. I would like to get it to you where you've got maybe a week or so to consider it before you got here.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda.
So,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, let me just brief the committee on two things. Last month, I did mention, and I did get a call from Mr. Bart Klein yesterday because he represents a lady who is doing this in Clarksville and downtown on 2nd Avenue in Nashville. She has bought old buildings and remodeled them. She is very much interested in purchasing the Goldstein's building. Her intent would be to raise the building, come in on the Vine Street side and put in underground parking. She would put retail on the first floor and then go 2 or 3 stories with residential condos is what she has in mind that she would like to do. So moving to the city, what the city is actually cramped for space. And so we got a visit from Mr. and Mrs. Shacklett, of course, Councilman Shacklett, and then Ms. Rita Shacklett's over the Linebaugh Library. They're looking at and feeling the pressure that where they want to go is to go out into the like Hobgood to Blackman and build kind of neighborhood type libraries and not have one centralized location. And the city is interested in taking over the current Linebaugh Library building and possibly swapping with us something. But for our share of the half of the Linebaugh Library that we went in 50% with on the city. So those things are in the mix, so keep that in mind as we move forward. But if you want me to work with Mr. Klein or whoever, come back to you at the next meeting with an estimated cost of square footage, et cetera, to build a building on those support piers that the county put in back in 1993. On that corner lot, I'll be happy to do that.
Commissioner Gooch?
How much work would that cause them? I mean, is it
Bart,
the PBA or?
I think Bart can probably tell us about what commercial's running right now with the inflation of steel and everything else. We just interviewed 4 contractors last night. The PBA did to build the one-stop building, and they've all got a pretty good idea, don't they, Ben? Public safety, the public safety building and not one-stop. So the public safety building, and I think they all have a pretty good idea of what cost has risen on steel. Sometimes it's cheaper to do wood, et cetera, but I think that we can come up without any expense of just.
So not very time consuming?
No, sir, just shooting to us what they think that it would cost to per square foot.
Questions on this project? All right, let's move on to the Lane Agricultural Building.
Good evening. Spoke with the contractor today about the Lane Ag Park. He's 98% complete. They're waiting on a small amount of vinyl base. All the flooring is installed, all the painting is complete. The exterior brick and the soffit's complete. But the storefront, the aluminum storefront and the glass is not expected until mid-October. And so that's the biggest component that we're waiting on right now.
Questions on Lane Agricultural Building? All right, let's move on to One Stop.
Okay, the one stop, they've sent out the first round of pricing has returned from the contractor, but the architect returned it back to the contractor for some adjustments, and so we didn't really talk that much about the number, but because he sent it back to have some items repriced, and that's kind of where we're at right now on the one stop.
Also on One Stop, Lisa, bring it up that she's in a conference. That's the reason she couldn't attend tonight. So, questions on One Stop? Next, community care.
Yes, sir. Attended the construction meeting Monday at Community Care. A lot of the last time we spoke, they were having trouble with a wall covering that the adhesive didn't work. And so at the contractor's expense, they've removed that wall covering and they're using another adhesive. They've done it in a test spot and it appears to work. Still several items to go, but the contractor, he's saying that may be complete by mid-October.
Questions on community care? Okay, next on the agenda, maintenance software presentation.
Mr. Chairman, I just received this from Mark Hawley. He's with Mark Klein. Mark says this is in regard to last night on, not One Stop. I thought it was One Stop, but you want me to go ahead and share this with you?
Yeah, go ahead.
From the PBA.
Yes, we discussed
Yeah, this was on PBA from last night. Chairman Vaught and PBA committee members attached as round one pricing, design development phase, cost estimate from Rock City Construction Company. Klein Sweeney and Associates has reviewed and believes the estimate is in line with the current cost trends. The overall project estimate is $5,847,725, which includes $282,000 for IT devices and equipment estimates from the county office information technology and $54,000 for FF&E. They're moving from a standing seam metal roof to asphalt shingle roof for a savings of $328,000. They are looking for phase two pricing, which we told them to get it down closer to $5 million. I don't know how they're going to do that, but we'll see.
They awarded the Rock City is doing the one-stop building, and then at the PBA interviews this week, they awarded Rock City the public safety building as well, out of four contractors.
Yes, sir.
Everyone understand that, committee members?
Community care, Mr. Chairman. I'm meeting in the morning with Doug Bodery, who's finance director of the board at Community Care. I'll meet with Lisa and Ted Beatty. Commissioner Cook, you're welcome to attend as a board member as well, if you'd like to, or anybody else on this committee. We have a preliminary design from Johnson Bailey on the daycare facility at Community Care, which will be proposed to be built right behind the existing nursing facility. It will house 125 students, age 1 to 12, I think, is what be licensed for 125 kids. So we're going to be meeting with them and looking for ways to how we're going to finance that. I think that we can get about a 1.5% rate through the county services, kind of like TML, but it's all in the same group. But we can borrow from them to purchase that, even though the the building will be owned by the county. But we think it'll be full the first day it opens. We've had over 324 responses from county employees that would be willing to use a 24/7 daycare facility to be the only one in the state, to where if you work second, third shift, you have someplace to take a child so you can continue to work. We're kind of excited about that, so we'll keep you updated on that.
Okay, thank you, Chairman McAdoo, and I would like to introduce Jess Blair that to the members of the committee. Jess went out on some light duty a few months ago, and I put him working on some software that we had already owned, and so he's kind of whipped this software back into shape, and he wants to, we presented it to the mayor, and I think we talked about him being his job now in the maintenance department, and we presented it to the mayor, and he agreed that it could save us some money, and it was some valuable information, and so I'm going to let Jess kind of demonstrate his software to you tonight.
Let me just say one thing, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. When Ben came to me and told me how excited Jess was coming back off his medical leave, and he started doing some things because he couldn't lift anything in the maintenance department, and so Ben put him to work, and we've had this software, but we haven't used it to our fullest potential, so it's not like we got to go buy new software. And when he brought Jess in to show me what this software is capable of doing as far as our maintenance is concerned, I was so impressed with it. I thought it would be good to let Jess come and just give us a little bit of snapshot of what this can do and how it can help us be more preventative, be more proactive on maintenance of all of our buildings, instead of having to pay more costly taxpayer dollars on the back end of taking care of problems on buildings. So, like it pops up on the calendar when we're supposed to change the air vents, inspect the roofs, on and on and on. So don't be nervous, Jess. This is his first time. So we know you can handle it.
All right, well, I'll start off. There's two ways you can put in a work order. You can call us and put in a work order that way, or you can go online to Rutherford County government, or say rutherfordcountytn.gov. I've already got this pulled up, if you'll look up there, and this is how someone online would do it. They would go on administration, come down to the county buildings, and you see they would have place a maintenance work order. They pull that up. This is just how they're going to put in a work order. I was just going to let you see it. And so they're going to put in their name, their email, their phone number. They can go to property, put in all the properties that we maintain. So if it's the Rutherford County office building, which we have Goldstein over there, then they would go down to the building, which would have planning and all that, and they would just fill out what's going on, like the service they need, and they would send this through. So they'd submit the request. So then we would get it on our end. So then when we would get it on our end, this is what our micro main looks like. So this is what we look like. This is the work orders that come in daily. And like the mayor said, we have tasks that we do, daily, monthly, yearly. That's all included with, like, here's just a list. Let's see, tasks, there's the change the air filters, there's the condenser units, and if you click on one of those, I'll just show you kind of how it's set up. But though it just, it regenerates every 4 months. So this is always just going through, and it gives us reports on that it's getting done, how many parts are being used for the job. Just try to, keep us as efficient as possible. but I was going to demonstrate like a work order. So if someone called in, since we've been talking about the Goldstein building, say the mezzanine's hot, so they, we get the work order, the mezzanine's hot. So what we would do is we would go to the Goldstein building. So then we would choose. Okay, so you got building codes commission, so we kind of trying to simplify it. So with it hot, that tells us that it's HVAC really. So I'm gonna go to the equipment to look. So what that tells us is, okay, so the mezzanine's hot. So we're able to put in parent and child assets. So like when someone says a certain area is hot, so we can say the mezzanine. Okay, well that takes us straight to air handler 5. That's where we kind of want to narrow it down. It kind of simplifies it for our techs so they can look at it. So we can now give our tech and say, hey, it's hot over at the Goldstein building in the mezzanine room. He can look it up. He can see, okay, it's unit 5. Let me look at it before I even go over there. Now he can pull it up. It's going to tell him manufacturer, model, serial. It's going to tell him everything about it. He can go and actually look up and see if it's running. There's elections, which Goldstein. We already know it's unit 5, so he would go down to AC5, pull it up and see if he can see anything, which is saying everything's off. It's showing the fans running. I'm saying it's 68 degrees in there. So, but though we'll say that it's not running, we'll say that whoever called, they say it's hot, so it's not running. So he can go back to the unit, and if, he's got to go up on the roof to check out the unit. So if he doesn't know which unit it is up on the roof, you're able to put the picture to say, okay, look for this one. And he can go through every unit up on the Goldstein building and look until he finally locates which one's, unit 5. So that's just to help our techs out. He gets in there, he starts taking it apart. He needs to, he can't figure out, or he doesn't know where the part might be or something like that. We're able to put more documents in here that I'm able to put down the technical support manual, so he can pull up the whole manual itself and, just look for the part numbers or, wherever, I think. Right there. So it's got a diagram of the whole unit itself, where anything might be located. And then if he, figures out that, hey, it's a capacitor, well, there's the capacitor, it goes right here. I need to find out if we have one, how much it's going to cost, whatever. He can just scroll up a little bit, get the part number, like which this would be. He could take it to Google, put it in. It's going to tell him, hey, we got it at Lowe's or Home Depot, and this is how much it's going to cost. So it's a huge aid for the tech himself. But if it's something that we keep on coming across, like if we've done the parts before. So if he pulls up the part and like right here's the capacitor, so he's put a part on the capacitor before. So he can look up the capacitor itself. He's like, oh, okay, well, we buy these, we keep these on hand. So they're in the maintenance building. We have 5 of them. They're in stock, they're hazardous, so he needs to make sure, he treats it like it's hazardous. He can look at the picture. It's not on there right now, but though he can look and see where he's got it from. another great thing about the micromain system is that we have a minimum of 5. So where it said 5 at, the maintenance building, we got 5 on hand. So this right here will help us keep track of how many we have. So whenever he gets down to 3, when he pulls that, he'll put it at 4. So when he gets down to 3, it's automatically going to say, it's going to send us a purchase order and say, hey, it's time to order 7 more because we want to have a maximum of 10 in stock. That's going to keep us from running out of parts and telling the Goldstein building, hey, it's going to be a week, these parts are on back order. So, it's just going to help us keep track of our inventory. And with that being said, we also have janitorial supplies is attached to the maintenance department, which I think there was over 500 different kinds of parts that go in and out, of our building. So being able to keep in stock and know, where it's at, how many's there, how many's, getting ordered, how much it's getting used, it's just the efficiency on that, I think, is huge. But though, when it comes to the reporting, that's the huge thing on this is it can tell you that, okay, this unit, it just got a capacitor replaced on it. So when they complete the work order, it's going to come up as a fault. And so you can say, well, whenever a HVAC unit has this many faults, I want to be notified. And so, when you have faults, it has a asset depreciation, which is a really cool report. So whenever you buy a new unit, you put it in. Every time that thing gets hit for a work order, it's going to keep track of it, and it's going to say, you say that this unit should last 20 years at this price. It costs this much to replace it. And it's going to help us in the long run say, well, hey, we've got 20 years of life on this unit, and it's starting to throw this, that, or the other, so, more often. And so we might want to start pre-planning on replacing this unit. And then some units you might get that have been installed in 1974 and never gave you a problem. It runs like a sewing machine. So there's actually 40 pages of reports that this thing will send. I mean, it's awesome software to dig into, and it'll do a lot more than what we'll ever use it for, But though that just tells you how much it can keep up with and do.
So, Mr. Chairman, a couple of things. Not only will this software, we don't have to buy it because we already have it. It will save our technicians a lot of times that are running back and forth. What I would like to do is to, in our budget this next year, if we can't find it between now and then, is to buy tough books to where the technicians will have a tough book in their van or their truck. So they can actually pull this information up when they're up on top of the roof, and they can actually see what it is and do the diagram, kind of like if you, I think Hiller and some of the other plumbers or electricians, or everybody has those. So we're putting those tools in the hands of our maintenance folks. It'll save us a lot of time and more importantly, money, I think. And the second thing was that because by default with Jess being out with a little minor surgery, and then he came back, couldn't lift anything for a bit, kind of fell into this, and I asked him, Ben said, I think he would really like to take this on as a project, and so I asked him if he's willing to do this, and I want to make sure that he was willing to do it and not get back out on the, climbing up ladders and et cetera, and he's excited about it, and I think he can, I said, well, Ben, if that's the direction you want to go, then let's keep him in there and let's put him to work, and we'll find another person to replace Jess on the outside. So that's, I think that's what Mr. Mankin's wanting to do.
On the tough books, why do we have to wait until next budget to go ahead and get a price?
You want to get a price for us, Ben? You want to get a price for us on tough books for all your maintenance guys?
Oh, I can.
Get a price.
But I don't have it in this year's
I know you don't
budget.
have it.
They said he didn't have it in this year's budget, but maybe we got a little bit left over in Gov 21. We might be able to.
Would be nice to have that information now. If it's gonna be vital like that, we may find some money around.
Right.
Call
Yes,
Cody
yes.
over at IT and let those guys get you a price.
I can get that price. Those reports that we handed out earlier, actually Jess printed those out of the software, and he's already shown us I think the HVAC tech. I'm not sure of the numbers, but
Yeah, so, I mean, I ran a report for Ben on that, and what caught our eye one day was, we had a guy go out and he did a HVAC job. And so he went out and he spent, let's see, around $200 in parts. He bought 3 parts for an HVAC unit. So then with his labor and everything came out to be $286. So then our HVAC tech, he was out one day. We had a unit go down, we had to get it fixed, it was emergency. So we had Train come out. They bought 3 parts. It was about the same price. It was about $300 for the parts. And they charged us $250 an hour to do the job, plus the $70 to come out. And so by the time they got done, it was $1,230. So I just took it to Ben. I was like, look, man, our maintenance tech did this for $1,000 cheaper, you know. And so just for, giggles, I took every HVAC job that we did this year, and then I put what Stephen would have done it for us, and then what Train would have done for us. And so I did every job. I come down and just having, Stephen do what he does, his it cost the county, I guess, $13,718. If we'd have had someone like Train, it'd have been $184,409. So, I mean, just the savings there is $170, $690,
just
One, HVAC, that's not plumbing or electric.
So can you have the price of those tough books next meeting? Okay.
Okay, thank
Any
you.
questions about this maintenance software?
I got one.
Excellent.
When he gets these prices, I would like to know how long the prices are good for, in case we can't do it right now. We'll see if it'd be good for 6 months or whatever.
Okay, all right, we can do that.
I think it's an excellent project, and I don't think we need to sit and wait till next budget year. I think we need to move on in there and get some information. If you're talking about this, amount of money we're saving, we may be able to find the money in line items we got now. So, any other questions on maintenance software? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank y'all.
Surplus property, Deputy Director.
Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, Mayor, we have our auction on our 4 pieces of property that we had talked about here for a couple of months now, and it's going to be Wednesday, September the 29th. You have an auction flyer on your desk there. You can take a look at that. It's going to be here in this room, second floor here on the courtroom, Wednesday, September the 29th at 1 o'clock. It goes down and lists all 4 pieces of property in detail as far as your address, if it has one, the acreage, tax maps, deed map, all that stuff, even flood and topo. Also, the information, you can go to rutherfordcountytn.gov/auction. And if you go to that, you'll see a drone flyover. It locates the property. In the drone flyover, it's on RCTV now, heavily advertised there, as well as DNJ, WGNS, and then, of course, our social media advertisements, too, that is on it. The terms that we put in there that we talked about, is a 10% down day of the auction, pending approval from the Rutherford County Commission, and that's your county commissioners will have to approve this sale or any of these sales on October the 14th, 2021. That would be your next full commission meeting. And then closing, if y'all did approve them, then it would be November the 15th, 2021. So come next Wednesday and check us out. And if you're wanting a piece of property, bid high, bid often, as I always say. We've had several calls about the properties, and so it's looking good toward coming up next Wednesday.
Questions from the committee on it?
The county attorney is, we're in talks with the Bragg Road, the one in Smyrna that we've talked about before. So that's in process. And hopefully by tonight, maybe not by in the morning, but the county attorney will have their second child. So I think his wife is in labor right now. So I talked to him earlier today, and he is ready. Yes, Mama is too.
Here she is, too.
That's right. Anything else?
Any questions?
I am.
You are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Not costing the county anything. I just put my expertise to work as far as the flyer and everything and our advertising. Most of it's free, except for D&J and WGNS. Our social media IT department is taking care of that. And of course our RCTV, they've put it all on there, so we're using all facets of Rutherford County as we can to save those taxpayer dollars. Yeah, it's just like the bank deal. There's no buyer's premium. That was one of the first calls I got. Is I'm looking at your flyer. What's the buyer's premium? I said there's no buyer's premium. Why? It's your property. We're just trying to get it back on the tax roll. Thank you.
All right. Okay, next on the agenda, Vijon lease discussion. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vijon had again approached us and want to know what we were planning on doing with the property that is adjacent to it's on the 20 acres adjacent to the clerk's office in Smyrna. Also where you get your emissions done there off of, I guess that's Weekly, and it backs up to G Street. They actually wanted the lot that we have chosen to put our convenience center, once we move that convenience center down there, and they said, well, they would think about it and get back with us, so that's basically it.
Questions? The mayor? Waiting on them to get back with you.
Well, they said that they would think about it and get back with us, so we haven't heard anything, and I don't think that they're really interested in it. A lot of that is in the floodplain, but they were just going to park trucks there anyway, so I guess we'll wait and see.
All right, any questions on it? Not next on the agenda. Twin Creek, Section 4, restrictions. Like to bring us up to date on that, on the covenants?
Yes, sir. The covenants and restrictions of Twin Creek subdivision, that is, I think we heard a presentation last month. Was it July? I don't know. Time passes quickly. So there are representatives who have an interest in developing a lot there on the corner, and their request is for the county to be considered part of the one of the owners in that covenants and restrictions in that subdivision, and they're needing one more vote in order to allow the commercial development on the corner.
Personally, I don't think we should get involved in it because I think the county should be neutral on this and let their covenant take care of, they get the vote from their once it's in the covenant.
I did talk to Commissioner Gurley. Commissioner Gurley, it's in his district. He was okay with it as far as approval. But it's got to come before this committee first, before it goes to the full commission. But you could, yeah, that's not in her district, but she is okay with it. Commissioner Allen, I talked to her today. She's okay with passage as well. If you want to suspend the rules, Mr. Chairman, and allow those representatives to come and make a plea before the committee.
Do I hear a motion to, got a motion to suspend the rules? Do I hear a second? All in favor? Are they in the audience?
Hey, Jack. How are you?
Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, I'm Jack Gritton. I'm an attorney here in town. I represent the sellers of this property and also the individuals who are buying the property for development. Twin Creeks Section 4 is a 13-lot subdivision of which the county is a current owner. The sellers currently have 6 signatures from other property owners in the subdivision concerning the removal of the commercial restriction on this property and need actually the 7th to make that work. The nature of the property and surrounding properties has changed significantly through the years, and the area is being developed more in a commercial manner than what it has been in the past. So what we're asking is that the commission or the committee act in a little bit different role than what you might expect, and that is we're not asking the committee to make a legal determination as to the restrictions, but simply asking the committee as representative of the county as a property owner in the subdivision to assist us in getting done what we need to get done in order to finish the commercial development on lots 79 and 80. Anyone have any questions?
Commissioner Dodd?
Thank you. Of the signatures you don't have, has Mr. Gray or Mr. Martinez, either one of those signed?
Wendell, would you come join us?
And the reason I ask, Chairman, is looking at the plat, those 2 individuals are the nearest contiguous lot owners. I was just curious.
Members of the committee, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, thanks for hearing us today. I'm Wendell Miller, and I was kind of instrumental in rounding up the signatures we have now. You asked about Mr. Gray. Mr. Gray's 90-something years old. He just lost his wife to COVID, and you know, he's 90 years old.
He is not, he's not one of the 6.
Not one of the signatures.
Mr. Martinez to the south?
And we have discussed with them, and basically we kind of got to a number of, it's like, we'll sign it if you do this. And so it got into that kind of game. And so when you start going down that road with people, then you know, and then I had another one that, you know, basically he said, bring me $100,000 and I'll sign it. You know, so you get into those kind of things with it, and it's like, okay, you know, let's just try the other route and see, because, you know, it's the other people that have signed are across the front. The lady that's had a hairdressing shop for the last 15 years, she's run a business there without anybody objecting to what she's doing. And, you know, the property was incorporated into the town of Smyrna, and at that meeting, there was 0 opposition at that meeting. The property was rezoned. There was 0 opposition at, you know, when the property was rezoned by the town of Smyrna. And then we've also had the town of Smyrna Planning Commission approval And nobody from the neighborhood, with all this going on, nobody from the neighborhood came to object to that. So we've had zero opposition all the way through. And these covenants and restrictions are going to sunset in a few years anyway. And so it's like, okay, so that's kind of where we are.
So it's already, so this is an odd situation. It's already zoned commercial. We don't have any say in that. It's already annexed into the town of Smyrna, correct?
We're ready to go pull permits with the town of Smyrna. We can go pull permits tomorrow with the town of Smyrna. It's approved. It's done. It's done. Yeah, and the big church is going across the street over there.
We own across 1 mile, and we own, and there's a volunteer fire department just south.
Yeah, the volunteer fire department is right behind this. Yeah, right behind it.
So our EMS is in that house across the street.
Right.
Am I correct?
Yeah, and the county actually got a waiver from when the county bought that, the county was given a waiver for a non-residential use.
And that's what?
In order to be there.
But that puts us in that subdivision.
Yeah.
And because of the restrictive covenants, right, Jack?
Yes.
That they have to have so many votes to allow this development.
50% plus one. So we need basically seven people, And we have 6.
Need one
and
more.
So it's
Several observations. So last month, we kind of decided we didn't want to be the deciding factor. We wanted the residents to be the deciding factor.
right.
And I asked if you would go back and see if you could find one more signature. I take it you couldn't find one more signature?
Well, for a price, we can.
Okay, so the 2 for a price, they're okay with it.
Yeah.
They just want to be paid. So to me, if they're okay with it to be being paid, then they're okay with it anyway.
Exactly. And there's been no opposition. There's been we've gone through all these processes and nobody's showed up to object.
Yeah. I'm satisfied that over 50% do not care if it's there. And so I was the one that did not want us to be the deciding factor. But hearing of the offer to sell your signature convinces me that they've got 2 extra signatures. So I'm now okay with signing.
Any other committee member got any questions? Did you put, is that a form of a motion, Commissioner Gooch?
If there's any more discussion, I want the committee to have opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay.
One thing, did Commissioner Gurley email you some information?
Yes, he has stayed in contact with me, basically, and he emailed me a package, and he was for it, and like the mayor said, and looked like he did do his homework on it, and he met and with everything and everybody. As far as this committee being the deciding factor in this, I myself personally would like to see it go to the full commission. I'm gonna give you my reason why. Because you sending me these packages that you agree with this and agree with that, you calling saying, commissioners calling saying, oh yeah, I'm for it and everything, then I don't want you to have a absent-minded ordeal down the road and say, oh, I don't remember that, I don't remember this, and if we get it out before the full commission, with Commissioner Gurley agreeing with it, then now we got Commissioner Rhonda Allen with her input, we can get everybody input in that area. We'll put all the pressure on this committee. I myself would like to see, we can voice our opinion and go ahead and vote how we feel about it, but I would like to see it go to the full commission. Discussion.
Sorry, point of order. Do we need to call us back out of the,
Yeah, come back in session.
you did that officially?
Yeah, I need that done.
Forgive me.
Okay. Call us back in order because we suspended the rule.
Okay, I will make a motion that we authorize the mayor to sign on behalf of the Rutherford County this petition and forward it to the county commission on the 14th of October.
Motion here.
Second.
Got a second to that effect. Any other discussion? I call the roll.
Commissioner David Gammon? Commissioner Cook?
No.
Commissioner Phil Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Paul Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Veronica Buchanan?
Yes.
Commissioner Trey Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Alan McAdoo?
Yes. Okay. Now we're down to other business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last thing, members, under other business, I think our folks, so what's going to happen, Jack, is this will go from here with the positive recommendation to the full commission when we meet on 12th, our next meeting.
I think
It's always the second Thursday after the first Monday, whatever. You have to look at figure that one out.
October the 14th.
October 14th, it will go before the full commission to be placed before the full commission at that point in time for the vote, with a positive recommendation coming out of the Property Management Committee. Okay. Thank you all for showing up tonight. Okay. Members, under other business, you have on your desk before you this map. This map is Mr. Sandlin. We got Mr. Hughes to print that off for you. If you see right there, it says remaining RC property, 3.37 acres. Right now, if you take the green dot and just draw a line, that's basically where the wood lot is. This is our convenience center on Weekly, where it's our largest convenience center that we have in Rutherford County. And the traffic is horrendous on Weekly. It backs up, especially on the weekends. It's horrendous and causes a lot of problems for all the other retail establishments and traffic jams because it's a two-lane road. So if you'll see where the tree line is back towards Smyrna property, that has been a construction yard that Smyrna, I didn't realize that we own. That's approximately 2 acres. I didn't realize we owned it, but Smyrna's been actually using it for construction yard. And so I sent word back in the spring to Mr. Hercules at the city of Smyrna as a city manager that we would be taking back over, and he said that he would clean it up and get it all taken care of, because we were thinking about expanding this facility and having more of a stacking on our property for people to bring their trash, as opposed to stacking on Weekly, because we were getting complaints from the city and other citizens. But he's been unable to actually find a location in that area to put for his construction. Debris, piles of sand, piles of rock when they go out digging, because that is their water department or construction department right behind us. He came back and made an offer, so what I'm presenting to you tonight is to us take that third acre, combine it with our front 2 acres, so that would give us 3 acres, if you're looking at the map, and for us to deed over to Smyrna that 1 acre where the dotted line is back to their property. We'll be giving them 1 acre, and then for that 1 acre, Smyrna will give us, they will run the sewer line, that green line, through their right-of-way up to our property. Estimated $35,000 to run that sewer line to our 3 acres. They will take care of the subdivision plat and waive the tap fee. So approximately $45,000 is what they've estimated them running the sewer line to our proposed 3 acres, which then in turn we will put on the market to sell it, and it becomes much more valuable with sewer on it to sell the 3 acres, and then we can turn around and use whatever we sell it for to put towards development of our new facility down on the 20 acres that we have next to Lisa Kroll's location. That's the intent. Kind of a win-win for us and for Smyrna, because we were going to have to pay to run the sewer to it, even if we didn't give him the acre.
Does the water run along weekly?
It does.
Water-
Yes, sir. We have water already on the premises, don't we, Mac? We do.
Do we have any questions from the committee on it?
I'm asking tonight, Mr. Chairman, for a motion for the committee we'll send on to the full commission to deed over this 1 acre with the language in that Smyrna would install the sewer onto our property, our 3 acres.
So moved.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second? Who made the motion? Commissioner Gooch.
Mr. Gooch.
Any discussion?
Just to be clear, this conversation is not about the disposition of the remaining 3 acres. It's not a commitment to sell it, or
No,
it's
sir.
just to deed 1 acre over
That'll be
in
another.
return for a sewer tap to our
That is
western
correct.
border.
Yes, sir. We may decide to keep it. The committee may decide to keep that 3 acres with sewer
After
on
we
it.
get the sewage.
Yes, exactly.
By the way, that sewer appears as if it's going to lose about a third of its linear footage, so that value is probably going to go down. I'm just, the sewer, if they move from the tree line back to their 1 acre property line, instead of a $35,000 sewer, it may be a $25,000. So it's not about the value, that we're being good neighbors, I think, right? Okay.
Any more discussion? I call the roll.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Commissioner Gannon?
Commissioner Gooch?
Gooch?
Oh, yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook? Chairman McAdoo?
Yes. You want to bring up whatever?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we got one more, under other business now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to share with this committee, because it pertains to this committee, is that our director, Ben Mankin, has turned in his letter of retirement. Ben has been with us for over 30 years. As you know, his mom passed just recently, and he's got his farm and her cattle and his cattle, and his wife's thinking about retiring in January, and they'd like to travel a little bit. And he came in my office with heavy heart and tears in his eyes.
Yeah.
He loves this county, and I told him I was really sad. I almost started tearing up too, because his institutional knowledge of every building that we have, I mean, inside the walls, outside the walls, how old that air conditioner is, he's much better than what Possum used to be, for those who knew Possum, who he trained under, I think, at one point in time. But he will be retiring in December, I think, second week of December. And so it's going to be a tough job to fill. we're gonna go ahead and put the, I've asked him, and Sonia has asked him to put down everything that he does, and I'm not sure he can remember everything that he does, so we can put it together in a job posting, but we need to go ahead and start looking now. So it gives us at least 60, 70 days to look. We're gonna need somebody that has a master electrician, because we need somebody in that position, as Ben is. Then when we get ready to pull a permit with the city of Murfreesboro, we have somebody in-house. We don't have to pay somebody else to sign off on that, which ends up delaying. So we need somebody qualified that can come in and take, and, you know, with this new software, we're just now beginning to cook and really get a handle on all of our maintenance and take care of our buildings. We've been fortunate. We've had some grant money the last year and a half, and we've been able to spend that and take care of some deferred maintenance. We've got all of our roofs now in pretty good shape. We've got buildings in good shape. We're really starting to cook, and this committee has done very well. So if you know somebody that's looking for a good job and good benefits, send them our way. We'll be posting that probably this next week. And we'll have a get together, going away party for him, okay? So we'll keep that silent. Hope he didn't go home and start watching real quick, so I'll do a surprise for him, all right? That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Heard the mayor retirement have been a big asset to this county. I can speak on 24/7. You can call him no matter, and he would get on it. So we're definitely going to miss him. So hopefully we can get that job posting as ASAP so they can work with him. Okay, it's one other business that was brought up about the church.
Yes, we've looked at this in the past out on, I believe it's Rock Crusher at our convenience center, Mike, out on Shelbyville Highway up on the hill. There's a church that was located right next to it, and if you recall, there was a lady that came before this committee who wanted to buy that church and put in a daycare facility, but I think we asked her to check into it a little bit deeper, because I think she was getting ready to get stuck with buying a piece of property that she really couldn't own, or something that went kind of screwy. However, the folks who own the church actually closed the church and went and joined another church, but it's by the new church. It's an asset for the new church. Am I getting this right, Chairman?
Yeah.
So they've come back and say now they're ready to sell. They don't think they'll be able to sell that church. So if at any point in time in the future, which we do, we have plans to renovate and improve all of our convenience centers, then this would be an opportunity to do that, is to make that purchase. I'm thinking that, just thinking, well, where are we going to get the money? Right here's one opportunity. There's others that if we were to sell this or something else to offset whatever we're expending on that. But Matt called, sent me a text, and I told him we were looking for other opportunities. If we could sell some property, maybe if we could, whatever comes up from selling the jail property, and this next week we come in with some cash, we could offset that and reinvest into something that improves our properties. But that'll be up to this committee to make that decision.
If I remember correctly, that church, they was using part of our land for parking or something at the drive. There's something about the drive going up to that building.
That's correct, Commissioner Cook.
They'd have to approve the...
would the state have to approve, Mac? I think if we brought another entrance off of 231,
So you want to have Mac come up?
yeah, just suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules and allow Mac to come up and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. If you were looking down on that piece of property, that church, it was Marshall Knob Church, and then it became a daycare. So that church is further south than our convenience center, and it does have an entrance. It's cut through those rocks, but it does not have a cut across to the other side. So and the county owns all around that. It's just that 1 acre that's not owned, and nobody else is going to want it. But if we do actually expand that center, then you would drive down to the current rock quarry entrance, cut across, come back. There is a turn lane right there, so it's already set up, and that would become the new entrance to that center, to where we could do the open top elevations, and the elevation changes may be already there, so it may not be as expensive. And then the exit would be what is currently our single in and out, and because there's a cut across right there.
So, Mac, did they reach out to you and say we're interested in selling it?
Their realtor reached out and called, and we talked about it a little bit. And of course, I told him I don't have any authority to do anything. All I can do is ask. So I called Commissioner McAdoo and let him know what was going on. I sent you the email.
Yes, sir. Did they indicate any type of price?
No, sir. No, sir. He didn't say, and I didn't ask. He just said it would be very reasonable.
Yeah, very reasonable. Yeah. I like that word. If you have his name and telephone number, we'll let Mr. Sandlin reach out to him and talk, shop and see what and then we can come back and find out what that reasonable price would be.
Okay.
Any members have any questions on Mac?
Anything you want us to ask?
Thank you.
Call back in session. So I don't think we need a motion to that effect. You just bring information back.
No, we'll just bring information back.
It's information only. But I want all committee members to be familiar with what area we're talking about. And keep in mind that area is growing by leaps and bounds. So
Domino's is going out there.
yeah, it's growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, Domino's is going in that old beer tavern.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm shocked, but all those rooftops out there are just growing like crazy.
Okay, any other discussion? Anything on the other business? I think everybody is ready to get out of here, but we had a good meeting tonight, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All right.